You're scrolling on your phone late at night while your dog sleeps peacefully beside your feet. It trusts you completely. It feels safe around you. But there's a hard-to-believe truth most people never think about. Tens of thousands of years ago, its ancestors were once the very thing humans feared most in the dark. Wolves weren't cute animals. They hunted in packs, could run for incredible distances, and could see far better than humans at night. For prehistoric people, hearing wolves howl beyond the campfire almost meant danger was getting closer. And that's what makes this story so unbelievably strange. How did the predators that once stalked humans in the darkness eventually become our closest companions? If you want to know what transformed those wild wolves into humanity's most loyal friend, comment 1. Imagine the world during the Ice Age, around 20,000 to 40,000 years ago. There were no cities, no electricity, and nowhere that truly felt safe. Only endless snowy landscapes, freezing winds that cut through the skin, and nights so vast they made humans feel incredibly small. Small groups of hunter-gatherers had to keep moving constantly to find food and survive the dangers of nature. When darkness finally fell, the entire tribe gathered tightly around a small fire in the middle of the endless blackness. And then, somewhere in the distance, wolves began howling through the cold wind. It wasn't just the sound of nature. To prehistoric humans, it was a reminder that beyond the firelight, something was always watching them. But then, something interesting started to happen. After every hunt, prehistoric humans often left behind bones, animal skins, and scraps of meat around their camps. To humans, it was just waste. But to wolves, it was free food in a brutal world. At first, they only dared to watch from far away in the darkness. The ones that were too aggressive were usually killed with spears before they could get close. The ones that were too fearful simply ran away and got nothing. But among them, a few were different. They were less aggressive, calmer, and brave enough to move a little closer to the firelight. And no one realized that the moment the first wolves stepped closer to humans, history had already begun to change forever. Over many generations, the wolves that were less afraid of humans began surviving better than the others. They no longer had to risk their lives hunting massive prey during harsh winters. By simply following human groups and waiting near the campfire, they could find food much more easily. And little by little, nature began selecting them based on their behavior. The more aggressive wolves disappeared first. The calmer ones survived and reproduced. What's fascinating is that this change didn't only affect their behavior. Over time, their bodies started changing too. They became slightly smaller, less intimidating, and their eyes even looked softer. And without anyone realizing it, the first dogs were quietly beginning to appear right beside humans. Many years later, scientists accidentally proved that this process could really happen. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev began a strange experiment with foxes in Siberia. He didn't train them or teach them any tricks. He only did one thing. In every generation, he selected the least aggressive foxes to reproduce. And what happened next shocked the scientific world. After only a few decades, the foxes started wagging their tails, enjoying human touch, and even running toward people for attention like modern dogs. But even stranger, their appearance began to change too. Their ears became floppy, their faces grew smaller, and white patches started appearing in their fur. Simply by reducing aggression, an entire species began to transform. Over time, the wolves living near humans began changing in very strange ways. They were no longer completely wild like the wolves out in nature, but they weren't truly dogs yet either. Imagine standing in an Ice Age camp and seeing a few of these animals appear near the firelight. They're slightly smaller, a little calmer, and their eyes seem less frightening. They don't attack humans. They simply watch quietly from a safe distance. Scientists call them proto-dogs, the very first primitive dogs to appear in human history. And then humans began to realize something incredibly useful. The wolves living near their camps could sense danger long before humans could. They could smell predators from far away and track prey better than even the best hunters. If a bear approached during the night, the wolves reacted first. If a herd of deer was nearby, they could pick up the trail much faster than humans. Slowly, the relationship between the two species began to change. At first, it was only leftover food and a cautious distance, but now both sides were unintentionally helping each other survive. And once that happened, the process of domestication became almost impossible to stop. That's why dogs are considered the very first animals humans ever domesticated, even before agriculture, cities, or written language existed. When humans eventually began building villages and farming, dogs continued evolving alongside us. While wild wolves still survive mostly on meat, Dogs gradually evolved to digest starch much better because they were eating human food. Think about that for a moment. Dogs have been beside humanity since before the pyramids were built, before kings, kingdoms, or empires even existed. Over tens of thousands of years, humans and dogs didn't just live next to each other anymore. The two species began shaping each other's evolution. After tens of thousands of years living side by side, the relationship between dogs and humans evolved into something far deeper than simple survival. Scientists discovered that when a dog looks into a human's eyes, both release oxytocin, the hormone linked to bonding and love. It's the same hormone shared between parents and children. Wild wolves almost never do this with humans, but dogs do. Over time, they even developed facial expressions that humans naturally connect with emotionally, like the famous sad puppy eyes. And from that moment on, dogs were no longer just hunting companions. They became an emotional part of human life. But domestication also brought a darker side that many people rarely think about. As humans began breeding dogs based on appearance, many breeds developed serious health problems. Pug often struggle to breathe because of their extremely short noses. Dachshund are prone to spinal injuries because of their long bodies. Some bulldog breeds even have difficulty giving birth naturally. It shows just how dramatically humans have changed dogs over time. From predators built to survive in harsh wilderness, many modern dogs now depend almost entirely on humans to survive. What's truly fascinating is that even after living beside humans for tens of thousands of years, modern dogs still haven't completely forgotten their wild past. When a dog spins in circles before lying down, it may be repeating the behavior of its ancestors, who once flattened grass to create a safe sleeping spot in the wild. When dogs howl at night, bury food, or suddenly twitch in their sleep, those are all ancient instincts that still remain inside them, and maybe that's what makes dogs so special. Deep within the eyes of a modern pet, there's still a shadow of the wolf that once survived during the Ice Age. Cats can live alongside humans without truly needing us. Horses helped humans travel and work, but dogs were different. They didn't just live near humans, they chose to stay beside us through some of the hardest moments in human history. They slept beside campfires when the darkness was filled with predators. They crossed frozen lands with humans, hunted together, and migrated to new continents side by side. And perhaps the most emotional proof of this relationship was discovered in an ancient grave in Germany dating back around 14,000 years. Inside, archaeologists found a man, a woman, and a dog buried carefully beside one another. But the most remarkable detail was that the dog had suffered from a serious illness when it was young. According to scientists, it could not have survived alone in the wild. That means humans must have cared for it for weeks, maybe even months, using food and time that were incredibly valuable during such a harsh period. And in that moment, the dog was no longer just a hunting tool. It had become family. And maybe the most beautiful part of this entire story is that no one ever tried to create dogs. There was no grand plan, no single moment that changed everything overnight. It started with a few scraps of leftover food beside a campfire, a few curious wolves that were slightly less afraid of humans, and tens of thousands of years of quiet evolution unfolding in the darkness. And today, when your dog sleeps peacefully beside you, it's not just a pet, it's the result of a friendship that has lasted from the Ice Age all the way to the modern world. And if you enjoy stories about ancient humans, evolution, and the hidden secrets our ancestors left behind, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. By the way, I'm genuinely curious, where in the world are you watching this video from?